Maybe I would like to say something because in the past few days I've been struggling about the isolation. It is not that I hate it. No, I should not be saying this anymore because I've said this many times, and you probably know already my view about being alone, and it's not something that bothers me at all. But in the past few days, since I've been through this for a long time, and there was a separate occasion in my life where it was the time when I didn't have a job. For 7 months I stayed isolated. Of course I would go out, but then I would spend most of my time inside my apartment, and that at that time it wasn't that grueling. The anxiety was more about, or there was anxiety at that time, and so that anxiety was preoccupying me more than the idea that I am confined inside a locality or a space that I am so very familiar with already. It seems that I have seen every nooks and crannies of my apartment already, especially when I clean it, and I have this obsession to clean. And so at that time there was anxiety, and that was preoccupying me more, and the anxiety about whether I will get a job or not, or what shall I do with the rest of my life at this point of my life, you know. But this time, I don't have that anxiety about a job. It is more now about, I don't even have an anxiety about the COVID-19. Of course, it's also because most now I stay at home, so the likelihood of me contracting any, or contracting that is really low. And so it was more about, if things are going to be like this for a very long time, then how are we going to manage, and will our lives be meaningful, fruitful, being isolated, being most of the time I think unproductive, because we just indulge in our procrastinations and all the things that make us lazy. So you get a sense of feeling that unproductive vibe in you, and so during the course of the day you just would like to do something, and yet you are unable to do it because you just want to procrastinate. There is no sense of a pressure there for you to do it. And if you want to learn, like for example, I love to learn and create new things, and yesterday I just learned a new piece. Not learned a new piece, discovered a new piece. When I do in the piano, so when I do piano, I would think of a song and I said, oh, let me try and play it on the piano, and because I cannot read notes. So I would love to learn to read notes, but I believe if I did that, I think it will curtail my desire, my tendency to play the piano according to how I hear it. It's like find it on my own, because I noticed that about myself, that when I'm trying to focus on something, play something, copy something, like for example there's this piece by Pachelbel, Pachelbel. Do you say it Pachelbel or Pachelbel? I don't know how the correct pronunciation. Is he Italian? Is he French? Is he German? I don't know. How do they pronounce that? So when I'm trying to imitate something, I tend not to deviate from it, and that takes away the creative part, the creativity. And so I feel like if I learn how to read notes, I will get stuck, I will get confined to that notes, to those, the way this the way the notes were written, and all the instructions and guides in that musical notation will restrict me to play it as is and prevent me from being creative, prevent me from even being able to play it without reading the notes at all. So of course I'll be able to do that. I mean, I will have the tendency, but somehow it is better for me at this age. I am not aiming. I'm not aiming to be a concert pianist at all in the near future or any time. It's just a hobby. It's something that brings me to a state of creativity, a state of bliss, because when you do something that you like, when you hear something that you like, it elevates the feel-good hormones in my system. So that's what I do. But that's the thing about this isolation, this lockdown. I tend to do the things that I would like to do, but there are other areas in my life that I feel like I should be polishing. And the reason I'm doing this filming of me talking about just anything that comes out of my mind is because I would like to, because I haven't been talking. So when you see, when you're alone, you are just interacting with television or the computer, and you sometimes have a little burst of expression. Oh, what? When you're watching something that you don't like, or really, you tend to talk, but just short sentences, and it's not really a long conversation where you follow a train of thought and follow an idea in your brain and convey it and put it into words, and so that others can hear you and actually get a feedback from others who are listening, and probably stop you from your tracks when you are going a certain direction that is not favorable to them, or that may be not favorable for humanity. So I decided to do this because I need to talk. I need to be able to put myself in that situation where I am continuously putting into words, into hearing decibels of meaning from myself, from outside of my brain, and because I'm afraid that I might lose that ability to talk or to have that coherence in my thoughts and in my speech once I get out of this. I wonder how it is for those people who spend so much time in isolation, whether they, especially when you are like at an age when you are above 40s, above 50s, where your brain is starting to deteriorate, and so you haven't used your brain for a long time. You not even read books, or not even, of course, not interact with people, with anything, and not talk to yourself, and your tongue was like dormant for a long time. Your brain got fixed into something, into imagination and just thoughts, and probably most of them are just like cyclic thoughts, and you never really forced yourself, or never noticed at all anymore that you are no longer talking. And so will you lose that ability for a while? Probably. It's just a question. And so that's what I'm afraid of, that I might. And I'm not a native English speaker, and in the country where I am right now, it's my only way of my only method of my tool to communicate with other people. I don't speak Arabic. And the other thing that triggered this is because in my quest to learn something, and my quest to improve my brain, I tried to brush up on my skills in the Spanish language. So I reset my brain, and someone in the wheelchair is under the sun and is wheeling himself away by himself. I mean, he has this electronic wheelchair that he doesn't need to wheel it by his hands. It is electronic. It's automatic, just like a Tesla that drives itself. a car or a wheelchair that drives itself. Anyway, so what was I saying? Oh, this is an exercise, this is a training. I should be able to recall what I was saying before I got interrupted. And so I was learning Spanish, and I was putting myself into a state of mind wherein I'm thinking in Spanish, because I realize and I believe that in order for someone to be able to be fluent in a certain language, he must think in that language and not translate it from one language to the other. Before I got proficient, I should say, I am a little bit more proficient now than I was back when I was in high school. Probably back then, what I would do is because I can speak that Pico language, I can speak that the Masbate language, and I speak the Tagalog language also, and the English language is something that we almost learn because we used it in school, and we were under the Americans for quite some time. We were under the Spanish for a long period of time, but I wasn't born yet at that time. So the Spanish language was it's like ingrained or intermixed into our language. So it's quite easy for me to be able to learn Spanish language because of that aspect of our native language. So when I was in high school, I was teaching myself to be fluent in the English language. And what I would do is translate that from my native language, which I don't know even more. The reason I mentioned all those different languages that I can speak is because I don't know sometimes which one shall I use to translate to the English language. You see, I grew up not watching a lot of television because my father didn't want us to watch it, and he didn't even buy a television at all. In the course of my elementary school life, elementary and high school life, and so I didn't get enough chance to get exposed to the way and the English or American, or English is supposed to be spoken. My exposure in the way English is supposed to sound is from my teachers, from sometimes in the movies. So my father loves the movies. Since we didn't have television, since he didn't want to buy a television, he would take us to the movies. He's an avid movie fan, and we were too. But it's not just movies, not just ordinary movies that he would take us to. Since he has this privilege of being able to watch movies for free, he would take us. We were 9 children, you know. So it's not just ordinary movies that he would take us. He would take us to high quality movies, and movies during that time, 70s and 80s. And I believe were like there are lots of them. There are like quality movies, good stories, good values, and creative and very well put together. And those are the kinds of movies that he would like us to watch. And he didn't want us to watch Tagalog movies or the Filipino-made movies, which were like trashy. A lot of them, you know, the ones that would be in the mainstream, the ones that would be so popular, or the trashy ones. So he didn't want us to watch that. And so in that aspect, I got to be exposed in the English language with a little bit of a quality to it. But yet that wasn't enough for me to learn and to be fluent in the language, just as I am right now. When I would do it that time, I would talk to myself inside the shower. I spent hours in the showers just talking to myself, and I would get so frustrated because I know there's a certain block, there's a certain impedance in my brain that I would stammer. I don't have enough vocabulary, and I found out that the reason for that is because I was translating from my language, from native language to the English language, and that translation would get in the way. And I didn't realize that, but yet I kept on, I pushed on until I told myself, until the time when I got myself exposed to television, wherein I get to be I get to hear it, the sound of it all the time, constantly. And at the time, I'm always still like a sponge that I could absorb everything and understand everything, and I would constantly think about the English language. And until I learned also that I should not be translating things in my brain, I should instantly think in English and then say it right out, just like what I'm doing right now. And so this is my advice to those who would like to learn how to speak in English. Those Filipinos, I've been told many times by fellow Filipinos that I don't sound like a Filipino, even if I'm, especially when I'm speaking in English. So whenever in here, the United Arab Emirates, when I would interact with Filipinos, who I, would get used to speaking in English outside, especially in the office, it would be polite to speak in English. And so for those I haven't met, who haven't met yet before, and then I would speak to them, and they would think that I am not Filipino, and I would ask them why. Of course, it's and they said, you don't sound like Filipino. And yes, indeed. The way I speak in the English language is different from most of the Filipinos. Most of the Filipinos would like to follow, emulate, or would like to sound like the Americans. And I am in between. My accent is not necessarily American, and it's not necessarily British. It's like in between. I would like to declare right now that I have more affinity towards the British accent, the British way of saying things, speaking in the English language, because I trained myself at that time when I was younger to enunciate and pronounce words properly. And the British, especially the London accent, they would do that. Put the T, sound the T's and sound the P's and the D's. And because I love the theater, and when you're in the theater, you have to be clear, you have to sound out everything properly for you to be understood. And I had that training, I had that exposure. And most of the theater sound or theater way of speaking is the British language. Growing up, at least while I was growing up, and now it's, of course, they're like for example, Oklahoma, the musical Oklahoma. It's in the southern accent. So it was something that I was struggling with. A lot of times I just wouldn't understand how it is, and so I got myself exposed to the southern accent also, and until I got the hang of it, now I understand it. So as I was listening to myself just a few seconds ago, I couldn't tell whether did I sound American or did I sound British. I'm really sure I don't sound British, not very British at all, because I don't put that emphasis yet. If I will try, like, consciously sound like British, like, it will sound like this. Now I don't have anything to say anymore, because I just broke my thoughts, and I don't know what to say. Even my behavior changes whenever I would like to speak in the British language. And because it's just not me, and I don't know, there's a certain rhythm to the way the British or the Londoners would say things, and now I don't even know whether I am talking like an Australian. But like I said, it's easier. The rhythm of the London accent is easier for me to copy. Oh, that now I'm a little bit sounding like British. British. That's a different thing. Usually the London, British. Someone's British. I don't know which part of the UK would do such kind of a pronunciation. Anyway, going back, so, all right. So yes, now so that's my advice. That's my advice to those who would like to learn the English language. But I'm not saying that I'm really that good. I have improved a lot. I have improved. I can confidently say that I can now interact with native English speakers, and I can confidently say that I have the enough vocabulary. It's just that I just need to bring them up in my brain readily so that I can use them properly, and there will be no interruptions or like gaps and silence in my speech. And it pays a lot to be able to use the right words whenever you are trying to say important messages to people, especially when asking questions. And I'm sure that if someone uses words, heavy words, I'll be able to understand them. Not that I'm bragging about it, it's because I've read a lot of books, and when I read books, I pay attention to the words. And it's just that I feel I have this affinity to languages, and the English language in particular. And so I'm trying to polish on my Spanish language skills. And I just got afraid that I might, so I'm compartmentalizing my brain. I should have a compartment, a part of my brain that thinks and speaks in Spanish, and another compartment, a big compartment of my brain, which is now I have, which is the present I have, a big compartment of it dedicated to thinking and speaking in the English language. So when I try to learn more about the Spanish language, I feel like the compartment of the Spanish thinking and speaking me would expand and would encroach into the part, or take away some space, or take away some space from the compartment of the English thinking and speaking part of me. But I feel, so that's just an unfounded fear that I have, and I hope it's not really the case. I hope our brain has a lot of capacity to put in a lot of compartments, like a compartment for Spanish, a compartment for French, a compartment for, I would like to be able to speak all the Latin-based languages, Spanish, French, English, Portuguese. Okay, what are the Latin-based? French, yeah. I will be, so I think those are the only Latin-based languages. Yeah, I think so. And then I'll move on to Arabic, which is quite sad, very, very sad that I spent 18 years in here and I haven't learned Arabic at all. It's such a waste of years that I haven't learned it. I consciously tried at a certain point in my stay here, but it didn't work. I mean, it just didn't work. People don't speak to me in the Arabic language. Whenever they see me, they instantly talk to me in English, and I can't stop that because, or whenever I try to engage with someone and provoke that someone, or get an agreement with someone to speak in the Arabic language to me, or even teach me, it just wouldn't push through. It wouldn't. It materializes and fizzles out immediately. And I don't know, there are a lot of circumstances that I had to deal with at the time that just didn't allow that to happen. Anyway, I can and I should not, I should put some compartments now. I should learn them together, like Spanish and Arabic and French and Italian. I feel like Italian now. I feel like the moment I learn the Spanish language in depth, I'll be able to switch quickly to French and Italian, because they're, like what I said, they're Latin-based languages. And then I'll go to the Germanic, and then the Greek, and then the Russian. Anyway, these are my dreams. I'm putting these out because I would like to be able to do that. These are, I mean, in this day and age, these are the things that we can achieve, especially in isolation. There are tools over there, online tools, that will make that possible. So let's do this, let's do this. Now that you have put that out there, let's make this happen. And so that's my Yelikaya dialogue for today, for the Yelikaya series. Thank you for listening, Tino. And I know you are watching this. I don't know what year you're. Today is the 14th. Yeah, the 14th of April, 2020. Just to put that on record so that you know. See you again next time. Bye bye.